Hey, puppy. Stop hiding. Why are you hiding? No! Get off. Stop. I'm right here. I'm right here. Hello, everyone. Excuse me. I know, that's rude. King David. We're on to the next portion. Need to test the audio here. Yep, it's perfect. Okay. Yep, it's perfect. You can hear the echo. Okay. I need to get better at preparing for these things. Turn on some lo-fi music and get to reading. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, I need another phone so I can check out live chat. He needs socializing, so he's in here. As you can see, he's not happy. Actually, this isn't working. It's dead. Let's grab this. It has some life in it. On to reading. Is that do not disturb? No, that's a timer. Where is do not disturb? Oh, it's right there in front of me. It's on, okay. Alright, we got this. Two are watching. Well, hello. One of them is me. 7? Where are all you people coming from? Okay. We've done this two or three times? Maybe twice? Hello, Colin. We are at 1 Samuel chapter 23. David rescues Kayla. I'm going to say Kayla, but I might be butchering the name. Hi, Steve. Welcome. This might be short because I have to go pick up a friend soon, but we'll get through at least a chapter. I'm doing good, thanks. Ford of Smithtown, hello. Hi! Wow. Welcome. Alright. I've been stalling long enough. Let's get started. Then they told David, saying, "Behold, the Philistines are fighting against Keilah, and are plundering the threshing floors of the grain." So David inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall I go and attack these Philistines?" And the Lord said to David, "Go and attack the Philistines, and save Keilah." But David's men said to him, "Listen, we are afraid here in Judah. How much more then if we go to Keilah against the battle lines of the Philistines?" Thank you. Aw, Colin, well, make sure you get plenty of sleep. I zonked out for a nap yesterday and slept for longer than a nap because I didn't have enough sleep. So thank you. He's a Shiba Inu. He's shyer than his two sisters, so he needs to come in here. He's so sweet. Bye, Colin. Where was I? Then David inquired of the Lord again, and the Lord answered him, "Arise, go down to Keilah, for I will hand over the Philistines to you." That's interesting. David asked God. God said, go. And his men were like, oh, we don't want to. So he asked God again, and God said, go. God didn't change his mind. And David and his men went to Keilah and fought the Philistines. He drove away their cattle and struck them with a great slaughter. So David rescued the inhabitants of Keilah, and they were successful. When Abiathar, the son of Ahimelech, fled to David at Keilah, he came down with an ephod in his hand. An ephod was a robe, a specific garment that priests of the Lord would wear. Now when Saul was informed that David had come to Keilah, Saul said, God has handed him over to me, for he shut himself in by entering a city that has double gates and bars. So Saul summoned all the people for war to go down to Keilah to besiege David and his men. But David knew that Saul was plotting evil against him, and he said to Abiathar the priest, bring the ephod here. Then David said, O Lord, the God of Israel, your servant has heard for certain that Saul intends to come to Keilah to destroy the city on my account. Will the men of Keilah hand me over to him? Will Saul come down just as your servant has heard? O Lord God of Israel, I pray, tell your servant. And the Lord said, he will come down. Then David asked, will the men of Keilah surrender me and my men to Saul? The Lord said, they will surrender you. Then David and his men, about 600, arose and left Keilah, and they went wherever they could go. When Saul was told that David had escaped from Keilah, he gave up the pursuit. David stayed in the wilderness in strongholds in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. Saul searched for him every day, but God did not hand David over to him. This is interesting. David was very much like he was asking God about everything, which I find fascinating. Then David became aware that Saul had come out to seek his life. David was in the wilderness of Ziph, in the woods, at Horesh. And Jonathan, Saul's son, arose and went into the woods to David at Horesh and encouraged him in God. That's so cool. 16. Strengthened his hand. That's so cool. David and Jonathan were just such good friends. It's so tragic how Jonathan died. I feel like there's a lesson in the last few verses of so David wanted to go to Keilah to rescue Keilah. David's men were afraid because it was right against the battle lines of the Philistines. David went down there and he rescued them because God said to go. And then Saul heard he was in Keilah and he was going to surround it, and the people that David had just rescued, God said they were going to give him up. I don't know what that means. But David was listening to the Lord. He was listening, he was asking and listening to what the Lord said. Of course, he asked him twice because his men tried to convince him otherwise. But he listened to God. I would have probably done the same thing. That's no excuse, but I understand why David was nervous. If he was nervous. It doesn't say he was nervous. Anyway, I'm yapping. Back to the point. 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 17. He said to him, do not be afraid. The hand of my father Saul will not find you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second in command to you. My father Saul knows this too. See, that's why Saul wanted to kill David, because David was anointed by God to become king over Israel. And Jonathan was actually the heir to become king. And Jonathan himself was like, you will be king. I will be second. Because Jonathan loved God, and he knew that God had chosen David to be king. So the two of them made a covenant before the Lord, and David stayed in the woods at Horesh, and Jonathan went to his house. Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah, saying, is David not hiding with us in strongholds of Horesh, on the hill of Hachilah, which is south of Jeshimon, or south of the desert? Now then, O king, Come down to Ziph in accordance with all your heart's desire to do so, and capture him, and our part shall be to hand him over to the king. See, some people were still loyal to the king. It was like David was like a biblical Robin Hood. Bible times Robin Hood. Because he hid in the woods, and he was pursued by the king, and some people were loyal to the king, and others weren't. Also, hello. I know some people just joined. Now then. Next page. Saul said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, because you have had compassion on me." Good baby. Go now, be very persistent, and investigate, and see where his haunt is. In other words, his foot. See where he is. And who has seen him there? For I am told he is very cunning. Yeah, David was very careful. So look, and take note of all the places where he hides, and come back to me with the established facts. Then I will go with you. If he is anywhere in the land, I will search him out among all the thousands of Judah. So they rose and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. David kept escaping Saul, so Saul was like, "Tell me, just go check, go double check." So they arose and went to Ziph ahead of Saul. Now David and his men were in the wilderness of Maon, in the Arabah, south of Jeshimon. Then Saul and his men went to search for him. When David was told about it, see, somehow David's always finding out, he went down to the rock and stayed there, in the wilderness of Maon. When Saul heard it, he pursued David in the wilderness of Maon. Saul went on one side of the mountain, and David and his men on the other side of the mountain. And David was hurrying to get away from Saul, for Saul and his men were surrounding David and his men to capture them. But a messenger came to Saul, saying, "Hurry and come, because the Philistines have attacked the land." So Saul returned from pursuing David, and went to meet the Philistines. Therefore they called that place the Rock of Escape. I think that's pretty cool. Like, David was so close to being captured. Can you imagine the intensity of that moment? Like, I'm just imagining if anybody made a film of this. It'd be so intense. Like, David and his men running through the woods. Saul and his men are so close. So close. They don't even know. And, well, maybe they do know. It didn't say. But it's like, imagine that they don't know how close they are. And David is just running for his life with all the hundreds of his men. They probably know they're there if they're making a ruckus. But, and then suddenly he's saved by the bell. Then David also got up afterward and went out to the cave and called after Saul, saying, wait, I just skipped a lot of verses. Saul returned from pursuing David. Okay. 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 29. David went up from there and stayed in the strongholds of En-Gedi. 1 Samuel chapter 24. David spares Saul's life. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, "Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi." Ugh. Then Saul took 3,000 men out of Israel and went to search for David and his men in front of the rocks of the wild goats. That was a name. On the way, he came to the sheepfolds where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. What am I looking at? Okay. Where was I? Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the cave's innermost recesses. David's men said to him, "Behold, this is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will hand over your enemy to you, and you shall do to him as seems good to you." Then David arose in the darkness and stealthily cut off the hem edge of Saul's robe. He said to his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, which he is, since he is the anointed of the Lord. So David strongly rebuked his men with these words, and did not let them rise up against Saul. Saul got up and left the cave and went on his way. See, David's men were like, kill him! This is your chance! All that jazz. And David was like, do not. Because God had previously anointed Saul to be king. So he was the Lord's anointed. And he turned away from God, and the Spirit of God left him. And now Saul is tormented by a demon periodically. And yet David is still like, the Lord anointed this man. David knew that he was anointed to be king. But I often look at this and I'm just amazed, because David knew God anointed him to be king. But until God told him specifically, he was not going to kill Saul. He was like he was the Lord's anointed. The Lord anointed him. He was ordained by God, and David was like, I am not going to undo that. He's like, he knew he was going to be king, but he knew he was going to be king in God's timing. And he just followed him in the meantime, followed God in the meantime. So David strongly rebuked his men with these words, and did not let them rise up against Saul. Saul got up, left the cave, and went on his way. Then David also got up afterward, and went out of the cave, and called after Saul, saying, My lord the king! Good boy. And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed his face to the ground, and lay himself face down. David said to Saul, Why do you listen to the words of men who say, David seeks to harm you? Behold, your eyes have seen today how the Lord had given you into my hand in the cave. Some told me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not reach out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Look, my father, indeed, see the hem of your robe in my hand. Since I cut off the hem of your robe and did not kill you, know and understand without question that there is no evil or treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you are lying in wait to take my life. May the Lord judge between me and you, and may the Lord avenge me on you. But my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancients say, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After, was he like comparing killing Saul to wickedness? Like saying, if I kill you, I'm wicked? That's kind of interesting. Sorry, puppy. After whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom do you pursue with 3,000 men? A dead dog, a single flea? May the Lord be the judge and render judgment between me and you, and may he see and plead my cause, and vindicate me by saving me from your hand. When David had finished saying these words to Saul, Saul said, Is this your voice, my son David? Then Saul raised his voice and wept. He said to David, You are more righteous and upright in God's eyes than I, for you have done good to me, but I have done evil to you. You have declared today the good that you have done to me. For when the Lord put me into your hand, you did not kill me. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away unharmed? So may the Lord reward you with good in return for what you have done for me this day. Now behold, I know that you will certainly be king. Okay, he's not panting. For behold, I know that when I start talking, he starts panting. For behold, I know that you will certainly be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. So now swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not destroy my name from my father's household. David gave Saul his oath, and Saul went home. But David and his men went up to the mountain stronghold. Wait, that verse explains so much. That verse, okay. He just said, so now swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not destroy my name from my father's household. And David gave Saul his oath, and Saul went home, but David and his men went up to the mountain stronghold. That explains so much, because I've often wondered why David, like later on in David's life, he has a general named Abner, I think. There's two of them and I can't remember who was who, but he is a relative of Saul's. So even though he goes against orders a lot, David doesn't kill him, and I always wondered why, and now I know. Because he was a relative of Saul, and David swore an oath not to kill Saul's relatives. I should look into that more and make sure I'm actually correct, because I could be wrong. Good boy. Alright, next chapter is about Samuel's death. Good boy. That was 2 chapters, and I love this. I don't want to end it so early, but I started late. This puppy is thirsty, so I think he's thirsty because he's panting. Look at your big paws. You're so cute. Every time I stop talking, he stops panting. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, what am I doing? What are you doing? I love you. You're so cute. Alright. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to end it here. Probably stream games on my other account. Good puppy. Which I should link in my description now that I think about it. Made a gaming account with my boyfriend, and we haven't played on it yet. Because we lack the ability to play together a lot. I just lost my place. Where was I? Chapter 30 something. 20, not 30. 20. 24. We're ready for chapter 25. Probably read it next Saturday if I don't make plans for that day. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you later.